true. What I mean is that it could be said that they invented the thing that we know today as the rock band. Before them, groups were basically EMI recording artists or whatever. But after them, bands were bands, and an endless stream of young men touring the world and deafening audiences. The Yardbirds were loud, and they were exciting. And most importantly, they were great live. Technically accomplished. I mean, they even had Jimmy Page playing bass for a while. So,
hey, Jim, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Happy Friday to you.
Thank you.
Jim, so before we get started, I have to thank you because, and I have to tell you how humbled we are to have you on the show, Jim.
Thank you.
You're part of music royalty, not only with the Yardbirds and all the bands you've been, one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, according to Rolling Stone and VH1 and everybody. So Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. So it's an honor to have you, Jim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so Jim, we have a lot of ground to cover. So let's get to it. Thank you for your time. First of all, Jim, sorry about the passing of your wife, Jim.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. It's been a couple of months now. So
yeah,
it's been a bit hard. Yeah.
Sure. I imagine the year of Corona, you put that element in there, and
Yeah. Very difficult.
Absolutely. So I think we're all grieving with you, Jim. And are you in the south of France right now?
Yes.
Nice.
I'm about an hour or so northwest of Nice.
Gotcha.
So up in the hills. They're quite nice.
Very nice, Jim. And you obviously this year with the Yardbirds, you guys had a few tour dates. You had a big festival in the Boston area.
Yeah,
that had to be rescheduled. Jim, when is the last time you went this long without playing a proper show?
Last time went a whole year. I don't know. Must be years ago. Probably before the 60s. Crazy, isn't it?
Wow, unbelievable. What do you miss the most about performing live, Jim? Do you just miss the drums? What do you miss?
Well, I miss the interaction with the guys, with the rest of the players, and they're a great band. And I miss the crowd. The crowds are always so kind, and they're so loyal. They always turn up to see us, and we always have a great night together.
Absolutely, Jim. Absolutely. So if you don't mind, let me ask you a little bit about the beginning and then kind of work our way forwards.
Sure. Yeah.
Jim, your early life, right? You were born in Walton, in Liverpool. Tell us about your upbringing, Jim, a little bit. Were your parents into music? Were they artists? How did music come into your life?
Well, funny enough, when I was a sort of teenager, I joined something called the Boys Brigade, which was like a military thing where you sort of marched and things. And I was part of a sort of bugle and drum band, and I played the snare drum as a marching thing. And I always, from there, I really enjoyed the drums. And then I heard early, American rock and roll, like Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers and all those people, Gene Vincent. And then we had a little band at school. We played all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And I probably would have been about 17 then.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until after I left school that I met up with Paul Samuel Smith again, who was also at my school, and we worked together, and eventually we formed the Yardbirds.
That's great. That's great, Jim. And when you were playing in those early days, you also worked as a stockbroker in the London Stock Exchange. Tell us a little bit about that juxtaposition, right? Because on one end, you had like the stocks and financial, and on the other one, you have this artistic hunger. How is that contradiction?
Well, it was a bit crazy. I suppose when I left school, I wanted a job, and that was the thing you did, and I was just living at. It was just me and my mum. My dad died when I was about 17 or so. So there was just me and my mum was very keen on me getting a proper secure job at the time. And so I was always quite good at maths. So I applied to a stockbroker's and got the job. So I used to commute, you know, I lived in a place called Molesey, which was about, you know, about an hour out of London. So I commuted on the train.
Yeah.
And I had to do that for a while. And then when we got the band together, it became very difficult because I was commuting every day and then I'd be playing in the evening. So
Right. I can
it was
imagine.
very hard.
You'd have the suit and tie in one hand and you'd have the
Yes.
punk rock and the earring on the other hand. Which one do you wear, right?
Well, yeah, sometimes I would have to get the train directly from London, you know, where I worked, out to the gig, you know. Somewhere along the line, I'd have to change, you know, into the old gear. So that was funny, but that was quite, you know, quite tiring. So eventually I had to convince my mum that I was doing the right thing by carrying on with the band, because I said, well, look, the band's good fun and I'm sure we're going to go somewhere. You know, we got a good following and it all looks very exciting.
That's great, Jim. That's great. Now, the original Yardbirds, the songwriting process, you've talked about the great chemistry that you guys had. If you don't mind, and you said that everything came really easily to you guys, the songs. Do you mind sharing with us kind of like a peek inside a writing session, Jim, for the Yardbirds? How was the process like for the writing session?
I think we all came together. It was particularly evident in songs like Shapes of Things, and then when we did the album Over, Under, Sideways, Down, you know, we all came together with our different ideas, and somehow they all went together. You know, I don't know, there was no aggro or anything. Everyone was willing to chip in with ideas.
Beautiful.
And, well, particularly Paul and I had a great relationship coming from school, so you know, we might come up with a sequence, a chord sequence or a guitar riff or something, and then someone else would come up with an idea for the lyrics, and then we'd carry on, and then of course Jeff would put his great guitar bit on. He would inevitably make the song happen, you know, with his great guitar lick. Something like Over, Under, Sideways, Down, it just became, you know, something different as soon as he put that intro on. You
the
know,
magic sauce, of course.
Yeah, it became a great, exciting song.
Yeah, that's great, Jim. And speaking of exciting song, you know, you talked about Jeff, you know, Eric Clapton as well, Jimmy Page. You've played with all of them, so you know this. What's the feeling like when there's magic in the room? Take us normal folks. What is the feeling like when everything just clicks on another level?
Well, yeah, that's great, and it has happened a few times. You know, something like For Your Love. You know, we went about it a certain way, and we did the backing track first of all with the harpsichord and the bongos and the drums, and immediately immediately started to take shape, and that was really exciting. Oh wow, this sounds great! You know, this backing track with the bongos and the drums going on, and it was like racing away, you know, in this great sequence, and then we put the vocals on, and it really did happen. And there was a few, you know, there was a few songs like that. Shapes of Things was another one, which really happened because we recorded that in the US in Chess Studio, Chicago.
Yeah,
and you know, that was magic too, because for us as English guys working in a studio like Chess, you know, it was like, this is great, you know. So all our idols had recorded in there.
right.
The same with Sun, you know, some studios, all the great rock and roll people have played in there as well. You know. Wow, Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis.
Yeah, that must be great.
Amazing.
Jim,
there were lots of magic moments, I must say it, and it was, you know, I was very fortunate to have those.
That's great, Jim. And I'm glad you mentioned, you know, the US and coming to record here, because I don't know if you know, but almost to this day, August 28th, is the 45th year anniversary of the Yardbirds first touring in the US in August of 1965.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So You mentioned Chicago, but during this trip, you went to Memphis. You recorded stuff like "You're a Better Man Than I" or "Train Kept a Rollin'." What are your memories of this first time touring the U.S., Jim?
Well, it was a mixture. It was sort of excitement because Giorgio Gamelski was a good manager. He had lots of ideas, but at the same time, he didn't quite dot the I's and cross the T's. So
Yeah.
he never quite knew what was going to happen. So it was all a bit of a bit up in the air. And you wondered, where are we going to fall? Where are we going to come down? But he had great ideas. Going to Sam Phillips and getting Sam Phillips to record us, and going into Chess, and all those ideas were great. And of course, recording in the US was something that was great for us, because also we got a much better sound. The engineers were much more acclimatized to getting a great rock sound, and we never got that sound in England, really.
Yeah, that's amazing, Jim. What a great time in history. Wow, and what a great story. Thanks for sharing. I want to ask you a little bit about the transition from the Yardbirds to the Renaissance, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
It was a big stylistic change for you, Jim. It's like a classic prog rock world kind of thing. The band, of course, included Creed Ralph, John Hawken, Luis Enamo, and Jane Ralph. Tell us what you remember from these early days of the Renaissance, Jim.
Well, we put an awful lot of work into it, but it was the same sort of thing. It was slightly experimental because we had all the lineup of the band. We set up the equipment in my house where I used to live, and we played like every day of the week, playing something or other.
Yeah.
Didn't really know. We had a few ideas, but we didn't know how it was going to happen. And then one day, John Hawken, the keyboard player, started to play classical piano. He started to play Beethoven.
Mm-hmm.
And great, let's leave this in. This is fun. And so that happened in a few other songs, and the sound sort of came about by accident, from just jamming around the song. So it was a really special time.
It's amazing, Jim. It's like you have a special orb around you, that you just all this magic happens around you. Like we gotta move to Nice, all of us. That's great.
Yeah, but I have to say it's always in a team. It has to be, and I would say any musician starting on his own really needs other people to play off and to work as a team to get something going together, because that's the answer. And say 4 or 5 people in a band, that they really make it so much bigger than just one person.
Jim, and speaking of starting a band today, what do you think? What's your take on like the way people are consuming music nowadays? You have every song in the world in your pocket. You can play any Yardbirds album. You can play Beethoven. It's crazy, right? What's your take on this new world?
I don't know. It's incredible, isn't it? I guess it must be very difficult for a new band to think of something unusual and individual. But I guess there are some bands that do their own thing, and of course the important thing is having that feeling within the band that they can all work and they have that chemistry like we used to.
Yeah.
But of course they could. Where do you start? There's so much music going on, all around the world. It's so difficult, isn't it?
It is. But I think the Yardbirds, actually, now that I think about it, would have succeeded in today's environment, because today is a lot of like single driven, and the Yardbirds had great albums, but also great singles. So you guys could have released a single every 4 or 6 months, no problem, and be relevant like today.
Yeah. But that was always the problem. You had to come up with another single all the time. So in the end, we ran out of ideas. That's in a way why we split up, because in the end we couldn't keep it up. They couldn't keep up that great single reputation.
Oh, Jim, that's great. That's great. Yeah, let me ask you a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 1992. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was pretty new back then. It's grown in a lot of stature since, but you guys were like one of the original, like, kind of classes. The Edge of U2 introduced you guys.
Yes.
It's a very, very nice speech, right? He basically said that you guys invented. If it wasn't for you guys, he wouldn't be playing. And I agree. Um, that you sounded different, unique, different textures. What are your memories of this Hall of Fame induction in Cleveland, Jim?
Well, it was so exciting suddenly to get honoured in that way, and it was very exciting to be there alongside, Johnny Cash, for instance.
Yeah,
Because we used to play Johnny Cash songs in the school band I was talking about when I was about 16.
amazing.
And standing up there with Johnny Cash playing a song, was amazing. And also, there was Keith Richard, Little Richard, B.B. King. There were so many well-known people there. It was such a great night. Very exciting for us suddenly to be looked at in that same light. Suddenly to be honoured in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to tell my audience, if you're ever in Cleveland to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Yardbirds are everywhere in that exhibit. So you'll definitely appreciate Jim's work and everything in there. And the Edge in the speech, Jim, he mentions that Jimmy Page played bass for a while with the Yardbirds.
Yes.
Tell us about this. So that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Well, he was originally asked to join when Clapton left as lead guitarist, and at that time he was playing on a lot of sessions in London. So he was playing on other people's records, and he was doing very well, and he didn't want to join a band.
Yeah.
But, a year or so later, when Paul Stanwell Smith, the bass player, left, Jeff and I said, perhaps Jimmy'd like to join now. And Jimmy was so keen, all of a sudden he changed his mind. Oh yeah, I'll come and play bass. If I'm in the band, that's fine. I'm pretty desperate to be in a band now after all that session stuff. So he was very, very enthusiastic.
That's
but
amazing.
It became a bit silly in the end. So he swapped with Chris Dreyer, and Chris Dreyer played the bass, and they did pretty well to swap over like that.
That's a great story, Jim. Thank you. I don't think people have talked about that enough. So the newest Yardbirds, of course, you are working with Godfrey Townsend, you're working with John Aiden, Kenny Harrison, Mike Scavone, Jim, like this whole gang. When you, Jim, I mean, you've worked with so many people. What is, besides technical abilities, how do you capture, like in an audition or when you're meeting people, what's your test that people have to know the spirit of the Yardbirds?
Well, I think they know. I think it's obvious in the end. Somebody like Kenny Harrison, I saw a picture the other day of him when he was about 16, and he was looking at a picture of the Yardbirds, like in awe,
That helps, yeah.
You think, and you think, oh my God, he didn't know that he was going to be playing bass with them, 50 years later or whatever. And they're very dedicated, and they're very honourable to the songs, and they've got an attitude about it, the way they do the songs, and they obviously love the repertoire.
Yeah.
And they know everything about it, and they've got it in their blood. They've got that music in their blood.
That's
so
great.
it's incredible.
And you guys sound great, actually. Like, you guys really do you guys sound amazing. So Jim, you've been so generous. You've been so generous with your time, Jim. Thank you. But I want to ask you one more question. You've seen a lot of social change in the world. Obviously, 1968, and in America, Martin Luther King, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you followed at all, like, kind of like the movements happening in America with the police brutality and all that. And what's your take on this? Do you think it's just an election year thing? Do you think it's different? What's your take, if any?
I think it's probably going to get worse a bit but I'm always a very positive person. I think it will get better.
Yeah.
But I maybe had to. Maybe it looks like it's getting worse now, but it's going to get worse for a bit, but not long, I don't think. And then it's going to get better, I think.
Sure.
I think the whole scene is going to improve in the next 5 years, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Jim. I mean, you've been so generous with your time, Jim. All I can say is, I just want to really thank you for your time. We can't wait to see you back on the road,
Okay.
I'm sure you miss it. I'm sure you miss just banging those drums.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be coming, next month as we were going to, but that's the way it is. But
That's the way it is. But, like you said, you're
but you're very informed. It was a nice interview.
No,
Thank you.
Jim, of course. Absolutely. We love talking to you, loved having you. You're a legend. So thank you so much, Jim. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.